In the year 2389, Earth is tired of wars that lasted longer than anyone can remember. Too many people have lost their lives, and too many cities now float quietly above ruined planets. The leaders promise that peace is coming, but peace always seems one step away. Then they decide to try something different. They say it will be a marriage, not a treaty, symbol of trust. A man from Earth will marry the youngest princess from another human kingdom beyond the stars, and their union will show that the two sides can live as one. Captain Ethan Cole does not want to be part of this plan, but he is chosen because he is brave, loyal, and popular with the people. He has faced battles and seen ships burn in the dark skies. He would rather fix his own life than fix the peace of the universe. Yet when the government asks him to do it for humanity's future, he cannot say no. Duty is duty. So he nods, shakes hands with the officials, and signs papers he never wanted to read. On the other side, Princess Alara waits. She is known for being quiet, well-educated, and always perfect in public. Many people call her a golden symbol, made for ceremonies, not for real life. She has always followed orders too, never allowed to dream of her own choices. And now, her first choice is also taken away. She must marry Ethan Cole, the hero of Earth. It is not romance, it is politics. The wedding takes place aboard a shining city that hovers above a calm blue planet. Millions watch from screens. Every word, every look, every smile is recorded. The air inside the hall smells of fresh flowers and polished metal. Ethan stands tall in his black uniform, his medals glinting under the soft lights. Alara walks down the path in a silver gown that reflects the stars outside. Her face is calm, but her hands tremble slightly. She repeats the vows clearly, as if she has practiced every word since childhood. When the ceremony ends, the audience cheers. But Ethan feels heavy, glances at Alara, wondering if she feels the same emptiness. She gives a small bow, just enough to keep up appearances. The moment feels cold, like the surface of the moon. The crowd sees joy, but Ethan feels only silence. The reception that follows is filled with powerful people smiling for the cameras. Servants move quickly, offering glasses of shining liquid. Musicians play soft music, and journalists chase quotes. Ethan plays his role, shaking hands, smiling politely, speaking of unity and new beginnings. Lara sits beside him, answering questions in careful tones. She does nothing wrong, says nothing wrong. But she seems far away, as if her mind drifts among the stars. After hours of endless greetings, they are escorted to their private quarters in the royal wing. The room is large, but feels cold and unfamiliar. Walls made of glass show a panoramic view of open space. Stars blink outside, beautiful but distant. Ethan walks toward the window, folding his hands behind his back. He tells himself that this is peace. This marriage, no matter how strange, is preventing war. But his heart does not agree. Alara stands quietly near the lower lights, touching a small pendant on her neck. She does not speak for several minutes. When she finally does, her voice is gentle, barely louder than the sound of the air filters. She thanks Ethan for following his duty. She says she knows he did not wish this union any more than she did. Ethan answers politely. Both of them exchange formal words, neither daring to be honest. As the night deepens, Alara sits by the wide window. Stars reflect in her eyes. She whispers that they look the same from her home world. Ethan looks at her for a long moment. For the first time, she seems human to him, not a royal figure behind glass. He nods and tells her the view reminds him of the calm before battle. She smiles faintly, just a little, as if surprised he said it out loud. When the lights are dimmed, Ethan lies awake in a separate room. He listens to the soft hum of engines and wonders why peace always asks for something personal in return. Outside the window, the stars keep shining, silent witnesses to a marriage made for politics, not love. He thinks of the promise he made to protect peace, even if it means sacrificing his freedom. But he cannot shake the feeling that this is only the beginning, and that behind the quiet eyes of the young princess hides a truth that could change everything. The citadel drifts through the dark sky, leaving a faint trail of light behind it. Two strangers share a bond neither wanted. Yet somewhere beyond that stillness, destiny begins to stir. waiting for the moment when duty will meet something far stronger than obligation. Somewhere in the endless night, history begins to shift, unnoticed. As the first fragile link between two hearts takes shape, days pass slowly after the marriage. The world outside believed they were happy. News channels showed pictures of Ethan and Alara standing together, smiling at important meetings, waving at the crowd, making peace look easy. People called them the couple who united the stars. But behind the polished doors of their quiet home above the blue planet, things were not as peaceful as they seemed. Most days began in silence. Lara would wake early, moving slowly like someone carrying a heavy secret. She looked at the horizon through the glass walls of the palace while Ethan prepared for another day of formal duties. They spoke politely, almost like strangers who shared a house by accident. She thanked him when he opened the door, or passed her a cup of tea, and he answered with a nod. Everything between them felt careful, like walking on thin glass that could break with one wrong word.
Ow!
The court expected them to appear together often. Officials surrounded them with cameras and questions. Ethan smiled through every photo, shook hands with governors, and promised partnership between their peoples. Ilara stood beside him, graceful and calm. Her expression never changed in public, but Ethan noticed things others missed. Sometimes her fingers twisted the edge of her dress when no one was watching. Sometimes she looked at the sky a little too long, her eyes filled with something like fear. One evening, Ethan found her standing alone in the quiet garden near the edge of the floating citadel. Small lights marked the path, and mechanical birds chirped softly from the trees. He stopped when he saw her wiping her eyes. She turned quickly when she noticed him and said she was fine. But Ethan had seen too many soldiers hide pain behind polite words. He asked if she missed her home. Instead of answering, she said she missed being herself. That single line stayed with him all night. I miss being myself. The next day he tried to ask her what she meant, but she avoided the question. She said it was just fatigue, that the new routines were hard. Yet as the days went by, her health seemed to weaken. She grew pale and tired. Sometimes she would stop talking suddenly, holding the edge of a table as if she were dizzy. Doctors came and went, giving vague reasons and harmless medicine. Ethan watched helplessly. She looked like someone fading away under a burden no one else could see. One night, rain fell softly against the glass walls. City lights outside flickered like dying stars. Ethan was sitting at his desk, reading messages from the military council, when he heard something crash from Elira's room. He rushed inside and found her on the floor, trembling. Her skin glowed faintly for an instant, so quick that he thought it was only the reflection of lightning. Then she gasped for air and closed her eyes. He lifted her onto the bed, calling for help, but the communication screen went dark. Every signal seemed jammed. The room filled with a strange wind, though there were no open doors. Suddenly, a soft light pulsed from her body again. Brighter this time. Ethan froze. It was not the reflection of lightning. The light flowed through her like moving water, washing away something invisible. When it faded, he saw her face clearly, and it was different. Still beautiful, still the same woman, but her features seemed warmer, more human, as if some hidden mask had dissolved. She opened her eyes slowly and whispered his name. Ethan knelt beside her, unsure what he had just seen. She looked frightened, but calm. Then she told him the truth he never expected to hear. She said she was not born a true princess. She had been created years ago as part of a secret human experiment. Long ago, both kingdoms had shared the same ancestors on Earth, but their paths had divided after generations of isolation across the stars. Certain groups wanted to create a bond between the two again through science. When she was a child, scientists gave her a piece of genetic memory meant to unite the two branches of humanity. The plan was buried, hidden, and erased from records, but she remained the living proof. They presented her as royal, keeping her secret covered to protect political interests. Ethan listened in shock. Everything he thought he knew about his marriage, about peace, about the war, all now felt like lies built on top of an even bigger one. She said that every time she used her blood to power the royal machines during ceremonies, the strain weakened her body. She had been told she must never reveal her secret, or entire governments would fall apart. But now the truth was harming her. Her pulse was faint, her breathing shallow, yet she looked relieved to have finally spoken the truth aloud. Ethan held her hand. For the first time since their wedding, their silence was gone. He told her that she was not alone, that whatever she was, he would not let anyone hurt her. She smiled weakly and whispered that he did not understand what danger waited for both of them now. Then she fell asleep in his arms, leaving Ethan staring out the rain-covered glass, listening to the thunder fade into the distance, and wondering how one unexpected truth could undo everything he had sworn to protect. Ethan did not sleep that night, sat beside Alira's bed, watching her rest under the pale light. Every few minutes, she moved slightly, trying to catch her breath. Words she had spoken kept circling in his head. She was not a true princess. She was someone created to join two divided human worlds. An experiment kept secret for years. Nothing in his training as a soldier or diplomat had prepared him for a truth like that. When morning came, the palace corridors felt heavier. Guards still saluted Ethan as he passed, unaware that everything had changed. Messages from the council kept arriving, asking for reports about the couple's well-being. Ethan ignored them. His only concern was Alara. She woke just before noon, her eyes soft and tired. When she saw Ethan, she apologized for the panic she caused. He told her to rest and not to worry, but she shook her head. "They will find out soon," she whispered. "They watch everything. When the power inside me reacts, they will know. Then we leave," Ethan said simply. She looked at him in disbelief. "Leave. We are the center of the treaty. We cannot disappear." "We can," he answered. "And we must." For a long time she looked at him quietly. For the first time since their marriage, she trusted her life to someone. Then she nodded. That afternoon, Ethan made a plan. He called his old friend Liam, once a pilot under his command who now lived among the citizen docks. Without explaining much, Ethan said he needed transport and secrecy. Liam hesitated, but agreed. "You always find trouble, Captain," he said through the call. "But this sounds worse than usual," Ethan only replied. "This is not about me." When night came, they moved carefully through dark hallways. Ethan led Alara past sleeping guards and quiet machines. She wore a plain gray coat, her face hidden beneath a hood. Their path took them through maintenance tunnels smelling of oil and dust. Every shadow made Ethan tighten his grip on the small weapon hanging at his side. On the lower deck, they met Liam near a service hatch. He had brought a stolen civilian ship, small but fast. Its metal was scratched from years of use. Lara climbed aboard, glancing nervously around as the hangar doors opened to reveal endless space. Ethan sat beside her in the cockpit, looking for the first time at the stars, not as a soldier, but as a fugitive. Once they escaped the control zone, Liam set the ship on silent mode. Only the humming of the engines filled the cabin. Ethan asked where they could hide. Liam mentioned places far beyond the trade routes, stations where no one asked questions. They decided on one near a mining colony named Corin's Edge. During the journey, Alara kept mostly quiet, staring at the stars outside. Finally, she said softly, "You should have left me there." "I gave enough to politics," Ethan said.
"Oh.
"This time, I choose people instead." She smiled weakly. "You do not even know who I really am." "I know enough," he replied. Her secret did not change the way he saw her now. As the ship crossed the dark side of a moon, alarms suddenly flashed red. Radar showed several crafts approaching fast. Ethan cursed under his breath. "They found us." Liam diverted the course, the smaller ship twisting sharply through clouds of frozen dust. Lights from the pursuers glowed behind them like angry comets. The vessel shook as laser fire scraped past its hull. Ethan climbed into the seat beside him, taking the controls. He moved like a man who had spent half his life in battle. The chase stretched for endless minutes. Inside, Alara gripped the edge of her seat. When a bright beam hit close, she cried out. Ethan pushed the engines harder, sending them into an asteroid field. Broken rocks spun all around, each one large enough to destroy them. Guiding with nerves of steel, he hid the ship among the shadows of drifting stone. The pursuers hesitated, scanning the area, then turned away. For now, they were safe. The ship floated silently. Everyone breathed hard. Liam wiped sweat from his forehead. "Well," he said, trying to smile, "next time you call, warn me if the whole fleet is after you." Alara smiled faintly, though her hands still shook. Ethan looked at her and realized how fragile she was, yet how strong at the same time. She had spent her life as a symbol, and now she was hunted for the truth inside her very body. As the hours passed, she told them what she had remembered from hidden records. She said both human kingdoms used to be one, but greed and fear broke them apart. Her creation was meant to bring them together again, but leaders feared that truth. They preferred the lie that kept them in power. Ethan listened carefully. Every new word confirmed what he had seen all his life. Wars born from pride, not difference. Far beyond that asteroid field, the first light of a distant sun broke across space, touching the old ship with pale gold. Ethan turned toward Alara, who sat quietly by the window. She looked peaceful under the light, as if she belonged there. For the first time, he felt that maybe their meeting was not an accident. Maybe the universe had chosen its moment carefully. As they continued through the silent stars, he made a promise to himself. No matter who came after them, no matter how strong the enemies were, he would protect her. It's not for politics, not for treaties, but because she was the only truth left worth fighting for. The small ship drifted quietly through endless space. To anyone watching from far away, it looked like a single grain of dust lost among the stars. Inside, Ethan and Alara sat close together, studying the blinking lights of the navigation screen. Liam had set the course toward the mining colony at Corin's Edge, a lonely place surrounded by broken moons. There they hoped to hide, but both knew this peace would not last long. The attacks had already started on several colonies. News reports filled the channels with mixed stories. Some said Ethan had kidnapped the princess and turned against the government. Others said the Union had been a trick and the royal family was no longer human. People were frightened again. Every story pulled the two kingdoms closer to another war. Liam sat at the controls, shaking his head as he listened to the messages. "They want someone to blame," he said. "And you are easy targets." Alara looked down at her hands. "It was always going to happen. My existence was built on lies. Now the truth is free, and no one knows how to handle it." Ethan looked at her, his eyes steady. "Then we make them face it. If they hear you speak, if they see who you really are, maybe they will understand." She smiled a little. "Do you believe that?" "I believe that people follow courage," he said. "You just have to show them yours." When they reached the mining colony, Liam used an old code to lower them inside one of the underground hangars. It smelled of oil and metal dust. They were greeted by groups of workers who lived far from politics. Their lives were simple and hard, yet they still listened with wide eyes when Ethan and Alara told them the truth. One by one, the workers decided to help. They gave food, fuel, and access to communication towers. A plan began to form. Alara would send out a signal to both sides. It's not through war channels, not through officials, but directly to the people. Her message would cross every border and every wall. She would tell the story of who she was, how both human empires shared the same origin, and how lies had divided them. It was dangerous, but there was no other way. For 2 days they worked nonstop. Wires were connected, transmitters repaired, old satellites brought back to life. Ethan's voice grew rough from giving orders. Alara prepared her words carefully, practicing them in front of an old monitor. Sometimes she froze, afraid of the moment ahead. Ethan stood behind her, steady as always, telling her she could do it. She was not just a survivor now, she was hope itself. On the third night, their plan came to life. Alara stood in a small control room, lit by a blue glow. Outside the glass walls, the miners watched silently. She took a deep breath and pressed the button to begin the broadcast. Her image appeared on screens across planets, ships, and stations. She spoke slowly, her voice calm and honest. She told the truth about the experiment that had created her, about how both governments had hidden it and how fear had stolen their unity. She said that humanity had never been meant to be divided, that their hearts still beat the same, no matter which sky they lived under. People stopped what they were doing to listen. In markets, in stations, in dusty homes, screens glowed as her face filled the room. Some shouted that it was lies, some cried. Many simply watched in silence. While the message spread, soldiers loyal to the old order moved to stop it. Fleets launched into space, heading straight for the colony. Liam detected them first. "They are coming," he said. Ethan looked at Alara. "We finish what we started," he said firmly. Within hours, the quiet colony turned into a fortress. Miners used heavy machines to block tunnels while Ethan organized defense points. Explosions started shaking the ground as the enemy landed outside. Smoke filled the halls and sparks fell from ceilings. Ethan fought beside the workers, determined to protect the signal as long as possible. Through fire and noise, Ilara kept speaking. Her message continued to reach higher and farther, breaking through systems that tried to shut it down. She could hear bullets and shouting beyond the walls, but she did not stop. She told every listener that peace was not built by leaders or soldiers, but by people who refused to be enemies. When an explosion hit near the tower, Ilara was thrown to the ground. Her voice broke, and static covered her image, but just before the screen faded, her last words went out into the universe. She said, "We are one family. Remember that." As the tower collapsed, Ethan ran through the smoke to find her, caught her hand before the debris fell. Together they escaped through the service tunnels, where Liam waited with the small ship ready. They flew into the sky just as the colony vanished under clouds of fire. From above, they saw flashes of new signals lighting up across space. It meant the message had survived. People everywhere were sharing her words. Nations were arguing, but also listening. Ethan turned to her, seeing tears and light in her eyes. She had done what no army ever could. They flew on through the glowing horizon, leaving the noise behind. Ilara rested her head on his shoulder and whispered softly, "Whatever happens next, they will never forget." Ethan looked out at the rising sun beyond the dark edge of space and felt something new settle in his heart. For the first time, he believed she was right. Truth had finally escaped, and nothing could cage it again. The small ship moved quietly beyond the burning colony. Behind them, the explosion's glow slowly faded into darkness. Ethan kept his hands steady on the controls, while Ilara sat beside him, pale but calm. Her heartbeat was still weak from the effort of the broadcast, yet she smiled faintly each time she saw another distant signal blink across the stars. Those lights meant people were listening. Her message was alive. Liam was at the back of the ship, repairing a damaged panel. Sparks jumped under his hands, but he still found time to grin. "You realize the whole galaxy just heard your speech?" he said. "You might have changed everything." Ilar's voice was soft. "Or started something we cannot control." Ethan looked at her. "Sometimes that is what change needs. Something nobody can control." For a while, silence filled the ship. The stars outside looked close enough to touch. Then reports began appearing on the monitors. Armies were no longer marching. Ships that had left their ports to fight were now waiting for new orders. Protest had started on many worlds, not against a common enemy, but against the lies that had kept humans apart for generations. Ilara's words had struck deep. They found shelter again, this time on a quiet water planet named New Illyria. It was covered in silver lakes and soft green shores. No one hunted them there. For months they lived quietly in a small house near the ocean, far from the noise of politics and war. Ethan fixed old ships for local traders, and Ilara helped teach children at the small community school. She laughed more often now. The quiet life seemed to heal her. Sometimes at night they sat on the sand and looked up at the sky. Thousands of small lights moved slowly above, traces of ships traveling between newly opened trade routes. Peace was not complete, but it was real enough for the first time. Ethan would watch her face in the orange light of sunset and think about all they had survived. But even in peace, old enemies watched. One evening, a craft appeared above the horizon and landed near the shore. A group of officers stepped out. Their uniforms carried the symbol of the new Unity Council, the group that had replaced both royal and military powers. They came with caution, but not with weapons drawn. An older man stepped forward and greeted them politely. He told Ethan and Ilara that the council wanted to meet them. The world was rebuilding, and people still argued about what her message truly meant. They wanted to see the woman who had started it all and the man who had risked everything to protect her. Ilara looked at Ethan, unsure. "We dreamed of freedom, not of thrones," she said. "Then we show them what freedom looks like," Ethan answered. So they went. The journey took weeks across quiet planets and bright skies. Everywhere they stopped, people recognized them. Some bowed, some wept, some simply stared in awe. Everywhere, children carried drawings of peace flags made from both kingdoms' colors joined together. When they finally arrived at the council hall, the place was filled with voices from every corner of the galaxy. Farmers, scientists, soldiers, teachers, all seated together for the first time in history. Alara stepped to the center of the floor, her simple cloak fluttering under the lights. She no longer wore royal clothes or jewels. She spoke to the people the same way she had spoken in the broadcast plane, honest and real. She told them not to worship her, not to fear her, but to remember what they were before the lies. She said unity was not built in big halls, but in hearts that dared to forgive. Her words fell into deep silence, and then the hall erupted in applause. Ethan stood at the edge of the crowd, quietly watching. He felt proud, not for himself, but for what she had become. She turned and caught his eye, smiling. For a second, the noise around them faded, and only that look remained, gentle and full of promise. Years passed. Peace slowly grew into normal life. There were still disagreements, but now people chose words instead of weapons. Trade ships traveled freely between worlds. The old borders faded from maps. Schools began to teach children about their shared ancestors. Ethan and Alara returned to New Illyria after their work with the Council ended. They built a new home by the sea, simple and quiet. People occasionally visited to seek advice, or just to see the two who had changed history. Many called them the Keepers of the Dawn, though they never wanted titles. They only wanted peace. In their later years, they would walk along the shoreline at sunrise. Sometimes they spoke about the days of battle and escape. Sometimes they said nothing, only listened to the waves that once carried the echoes of war but now whispered calm. One morning, after a night of bright shooting stars, Alara stood on the sand while Ethan waited by the porch. She placed a small golden crown, the last symbol of her royal past, in the tide and watched it drift away. Then she walked back to him with a smile. "It took so long," she said gently, "but at last we are home." Ethan nodded, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. Together, they watched the sun rise over the quiet water, lighting the sky with gold and pink. Above them, ships moved peacefully between the stars that once held only war. And so their story ended not with battle or loss, but with calm morning light and the simple truth they had spent their lives proving that humanity, no matter how far apart it wandered, was still one heart beating beneath the same sky.